Back now with a terrific panel. New York Times technology reporter Cecilia Kong, co-author of An Ugly Truth Inside Facebook's Battle for Domination. Former Homeland Security Secretary Jay Johnson. Former Republican Congressman Carlos Curbelo. And senior editor at Reason magazine, Elizabeth Nolan Brown. Welcome to all of you. Cecilia, I want to start with you because you've written this book on Facebook. It does, Kara Swisher has a sort of a take on Facebook, and even Frances Haugen. Mark Zuckerberg didn't know he was what necessarily he was creating when he started creating it. And that's what it feels like with all these social media companies. They were started with sort of some good intentions, and it got out of it. They lost control of it.
Yeah, I mean, there are the two guiding forces. They wanted companies that would grow and grow fast and grow big and scale to the point where they're global and they would have historic and lasting impact. And the second thing is we have to remember these are businesses. Mm-hmm. These are companies that are motivated by profits. And the business model is built on the idea of getting eyeballs and attention to serve up to advertisers and to make money that way. And that, I think, if you miss those two important points, mm-hmm. you sort of miss what's happening here.
But they never, what I want to get at is they never thought, hey, we're going to be trafficking misinformation.
They never did.
That seemed to shock them.
Yeah, and I think a lot of these companies are built oftentimes by actually sort of young, male, idealistic entrepreneurs in Silicon Valley with big dreams, and they've got lots of funding, and their idealism is what really attracts the funding and attracts a lot of interest by engineers who want to work there because they do want to change the world, but they're not motivated to look around the corners for potential problems because their eye is always on growth, and their eyes have always been on really growing that business model.
Elizabeth, would you argue is the problem the companies or is the problem us?
I think that the problem, a lot of things that get blamed on social media are just human problems, and social media just makes them more visible, yes.
More visible? But do you accept the idea that social media may ramp it up, accelerate these issues?
I think that social media, I mean, things that people don't think about algorithms is that they actually help suppress a lot of the bad content. Without algorithms, you know, we would be seeing a lot more hate speech, we would be seeing a lot more offensive content. I think that they actually do a lot of good for your average person online.
Jay, when you were at Homeland Security, you were just beginning to deal with this misinformation issue. How did you tackle it then? And looking back, how would you be tackling it now?
Looking back at the 2016 election, and I should mention that as a lawyer, I have clients.
Yes, Paul Weiss. You work for a firm that does, Paul Weiss, that does represent some of these social media companies.
Made that disclosure.
Yes.
This was the Trojan horse of 2016. 2016, I, as Secretary of Homeland Security, was very focused on potential cyber attacks on election infrastructure. And just before I left office, I declared election infrastructure to be critical infrastructure. And we were worried about, you know, ballot counting, reporting, and so forth. Turned out that was not the issue, hasn't been the issue, wasn't the issue in 2020, wasn't the issue in 2022. The Trojan horse was the extent to which the Russian government invaded our American conversation. And it's spelled out in the Mueller indictment. But this is an issue that we've really yet to get our arms around because it does implicate free speech.
Carlos, I feel like your national political career sort of encompassed this moment where we went from social media good to social media problematic. Is that fair?
Yeah, and I think, Chuck, one of the big problems, especially on the right, is that social media has sown a lot of distrust because the right feels under attack by big institutions. Obviously, these big companies represent, you know, mainstream America, and because we don't really know exactly how these companies operate, it breeds a lot of conspiracy theories. It makes people paranoid. So one of the reasons Elon Musk has become so popular on the right is because this concept that he's unveiling, right, raising the curtain on everything Twitter did throughout all these years. So yes, it has hurt our democracy. Why? Because it has diminished trust in society.
Go ahead.
This social media, in my view, accentuates the point that our greatest strength as a free and open society is also our greatest vulnerability. It's no coincidence that at the same time, the rise of social media, more people are participating in the American political process. 1992, 105 million people.
It's an important point. I mean, our voter turnout in the last decade has been going up, and up. Now,
66%.
One might argue that voters in this country start voting when they're worried that the democracy
Well,
is
there
framed.
is that too, yes. And you had this person called Trump that got everybody's attention. But through social media, or social media raises political awareness. You can mobilize a movement behind social media. Look at how effective President Zelensky in Ukraine has been using social media. But this is also our vulnerability too, obviously, the echo chamber, fake news.
Elizabeth, I want to start with you. If we're going to regulate this, should we come at it consumer first or company first?
I think we definitely need to consider consumers first. I don't think that regulating it just for the sake of keeping these companies being big is a good thing. You know, we already see Facebook, Twitter, their power is diminishing. Like, new things are coming along. TikTok, Mastodon was getting thousands of users an hour recently. I think that the market will take care of unseating these dominant companies if we don't overregulate, because when there's too much regulation, only Facebook can keep up with it, and it entrenches Facebook's power.
Well, it is. Look, none of these companies want regulation. I mean, I was talking about, I mean, it is astonishing how fast Facebook killed that bill. It was a done deal in the defense authorization bill. It was done, and then it got stripped out.
Yeah.
She didn't know how to happen.
Yes. You know, I've seen dozens of bills be proposed on regulating technology companies, and none of them have passed. And I really don't think that regulation is where we're going to see accountability first. I agree with Elizabeth. I think consumers will vote with their feet. We're already seeing Facebook see that users are not using the site as much and not visiting as often. And we're seeing them go to, and innovation is winning in that other sites, be it they good or bad, are attracting new users like TikTok. The other way we're going to see real accountability is probably in the legal system. We're probably going to see lawsuits, and we saw
So
that.
you would like to see 230 gone or amended so that you saw more lawsuits?
Well, I think regulating speech is going to be hard in general. I think getting rid of 230 is going to be very difficult. I think Republicans and Democrats agree that it needs to be revised in some ways, but for very different reasons. They come at it completely polar opposite reasons for why. But as far as 230 goes in speech, I think what you're going to see is more individual lawsuits. You saw, for example, with the lawsuits against Alex Jones by the Sandy Hook families. You saw Dominion voting machines, the company that has to sue Fox News and other
And this
companies
is not
as well.
holding the company, the tech companies. It's going after the individual that used the tech platform.
And so I think users, that will probably create bottlenecks potentially in the spread of disinformation, the creation and the spread of disinformation.
Algorithm transparency. It's easy to say, I don't know what that would look like. Do you know what that would look like?
Well, but that's the key, because this is the mystery. How is information getting boosted? How's information getting suppressed? That's what makes people paranoid.
Well, I'd like to make the choice. You and I were talking about this earlier. I want to make the choice. Hey, I want some use of the algorithm, but I want to pick and choose when I let you decide AI computer.
It's great when they let you choose to see things in chronological order still. I wish all tech companies would do that. But again, I think that's something that, you know, users need to demand. It can't come from a top-down mandate.
Last point.
You asked Francis, should the government approve algorithms? I think that comes perilously close to regulating speech. Very interesting exercise. If you put in to your phone a well-known right-wing commentator and the words "great replacement," you get a cite from the Anti-Defamation League arguing that he should be deplatformed. So,
an interesting way you can come to that. This was a terrific panel. Thank you.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.